Hello, hello, hello. It is Moscow Mitch Monday. I'm Aaron Viles with the Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee. This is our almost live stream for Labor Day. We've got 57 days until November 3rd. We have got a lot of work to do to retire Mitch McConnell. And as we start every show, I want to let you know what my sign says today. My sign says, "Wake up, Mitch. It's time to go home." So it's a special show. As I said, it's an almost live stream. I don't have any co-hosts today. I'm actually just here to kind of give you a little information and bring in some great interviews that we've got lined up. We got a new one, and we got a couple of repeats that we're excited to reshare in case you've missed them earlier. So it's Labor Day, which of course is not a day free of labor, but a day to recognize the importance and the influence of the labor movement, known to all Fox News viewers as communism. Time to put a little context in the labor movement. So, we're in the middle of a lot of civil rights protests happening right now, a lot of concern about, how critical it is we advance civil rights for everybody, which is absolutely right, but our people of color, citizens most specifically right now, with police brutality getting a lot of very necessary attention and a lot of significant concern. What are people doing about it? Not enough, certainly. But I wanted to give a little context to the labor movement, and specifically with a tie to the civil rights movement. So a lot of folks don't know much about the Martin Luther King Jr.'s engagement with the labor unions, but he was a very strong supporter of labor unions, spoke with them a number of times. Actually, I think the afl-cio paid for the sound system for the March on Washington, although it was kind of quiet, and it wasn't maybe officially authorized by the full council, because there were certainly some racism issues within the labor movement, but most folks who were progressive and leaders of the labor movement really wanted to see the civil rights movement succeed and saw that there was a lot of common cause there. So here's MLK on it. The labor movement was the principal force that transformed misery and despair into hope and progress. Out of its bold struggles, economic and social reform gave birth to unemployment insurance, old age pensions, government relief for the destitute, and above all, new wage levels that meant not mere survival, but a tolerable life. The captains of industry did not lead this transformation. They resisted it until they were overcome. When in the 30s the wave of union organization crested over the nation, it carried to secure shores not only itself, but the whole society. So that's Martin Luther King Jr. speaking to the state convention of the Illinois AFL-CIO in 1965. So this almost live stream will close by a re-airing of our interview with Bill Longrian, who's the president of the Kentucky AFL-CIO, who's been fighting hard to get Mitch to do more for the working class for Kentucky for years, and has not had a lot of success because Mitch does not care about the working class of Kentucky, and so the Kentucky AFL-CIO has been proven to be a strong ally in our efforts to ditch Mitch here. So the rest of our episode is going to feature Doug following Russian spies and NRA political contributions. We've got a call to action to defend our nation. We've got a new interview with Cathy Spicer and Ella McCutchen with moms and students demand action for gun sense in America. And finally, our interview with Bill to close things out. Actually, we do have also a short segment with Congressman John Yarmuth. So that was one of our favorite interviews, and we're going to bring back John Yarmuth for a little bit for this live stream as well. So we do right now have something I'd like to draw your attention to. We've got an incentive to help encourage you to make a donation to fund all the work that we're doing between now and November 3rd, those 57 days that we're going to be so busy. We've got an anonymous donor put up a $500 challenge donation, kind of a Mitch match fund that we have right now. So between now and our next live show, Monday the 14th, we need $300 more in individual contributions to meet that match, to get that $500, and that is basically going to be doubling whatever support you put in the kitty. So I hope you'll do that right now. We ran through our stamps budget because we did such an amazing job with our 5K for KY, new voter registration effort. Used a lot of stamps to do that. So, if you want to donate the cost of a book of stamps, that's $11. If you want to buy a coil of stamps, that is, I think, $55. So those are great amounts to contribute. Really, anything helps. Anything adds up. But please do make a donation and support our efforts. But gonna go right now to Doug Price following the NRA with a specific eye towards Russian spies.
I would certainly be in favor of allowing states to use the bankruptcy route. I have my Porter Paints hat as I'm going to paint a picture about Mitch and money. Tonight I will connect the dots and weave a story about Mitch, money, intrigue, and the NRA. A couple of years ago I watched a TV series titled The Americans. The central characters were Russian citizens brought to America to spy on America. Fast forward to 2016. Is this fiction the truth? In 2018, Maria Butina, a 30-year-old gun rights enthusiast, was the first Russian citizen convicted of a conspiracy to act as an unregistered foreign agent of Russia within the United States. She was released in October 2019 and deported to her hometown in Siberia. I understand it's really cold there. She burst onto the scene when she connected with the NRA and started working to help the NRA connect with gun rights in Russia. She got involved with an American lobbyist, Paul Erickson, who is now in jail for other matters. From an article by Anna Masoglia, the NRA disclosed spending on foreign fundraising for the first time in the gun rights group's history. While the NRA disclosed spending on foreign fundraising makes up only a small slice of the operation's total outlay, the actual amount of money brought in by that fundraising is unknown. The NRA is not allowed to use foreign funds to influence elections, but as a 501c4 nonprofit, it can continue to spend millions of dollars on political activity without revealing its funders, how much foreign money it takes in, or what the money was spent on. Prior to reporting $92,000 on foreign program expenses and $24,000 spending on foreign fundraising in 2018, the NRA's previously disclosed overseas activities were limited to offshore investments in Central America and the Caribbean, along with occasional trainings or events in that region or in Europe. Do we want American-based organizations and American politicians receiving funds from foreign governments and or potential pass-throughs from foreign governments to politicians? Do we want foreign governments messing in our elections? I think the 2016 election and the aftermath holds the answer to this. Here are some NRA campaign contribution figures from Open Secrets, the Center for Responsive Politics. In the 2020 election cycle, NRA had contributed over $264,000 to Republicans and a measly $2,600 to Democrats. Of those funds, $206,000 went to the NRA Victory Fund, $30,000 each to the National Republican Congressional and Senatorial Committees, $16,000 to the Republican National Committee, and $10,000 to Mitch. Most people will remember Jim Brady, who was President Reagan's press secretary until he was wounded during an assassination attempt of Reagan. The Brady organization continues work to pass universal background checks. Here is a Mitch-related nugget from the webpage. The NRA has contributed $1,267,139 to Mitch over his career. We heard from an earlier Moscow Mitch Monday contributor that a meeting with Mitch would cost at least $25,000. I would guess that $1.2 million buys more than $25,000. So what does Mitch think about guns? From a Washington Examiner op-ed by Charlie Spearing, 2014, does Mitch McConnell own a gun? Of course Mitch McConnell has shot a gun as a matter of principle. He's not interested in helping the left bully people into revealing what protection they may keep in their own homes. This was a comment by a McConnell campaign spokesman. After the Marshall County, Kentucky school shooting, where 2 people were killed in 2018, Mitch said, "I don't think at the federal level there's much that we can do other than appropriate funds." McConnell is not in favor of gun control laws. He just wants to throw money at the schools rather than addressing the real problem. He thinks school security is the most likely way that schools can stop shootings. You would think, given how much it takes to get on an American plane, or given how much it takes to get into courthouses, that this might be something we could achieve. But I think we can't do that from Washington. I think basically it's a local decision. He added, "It's a darn shame that's where we are, but this epidemic is something that's got all of our attention." Does $1.2 million buy dedication to the NRA? Seems like there is another epidemic going on, and at least he finally stepped up and said masks are a good thing. But he continues to remain silent about the current administration's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. On our Moscow Mitch Monday presentation last week, we heard from Congressman John Yarmuth. He said that the House had approved a universal background check measure, but Mitch has not brought the bill forward along with almost an additional 400 others. Congressman Yarmuth believes that Mitch doesn't really care whether or not the bill would pass. He only cares about protecting senators who would have to face constituents if the bill is considered.
Universal background checks on gun purchases. This is an issue that has 90% support in the country. 75% of NRA members support that. And we passed it and Mitch is just sitting on it. And quite frankly, I don't think Mitch cares about the issue one way or another.
I've said repeatedly that the key to all this is people voting. Too many times, only 45% of the registered voters vote, which indicates that you only have to win 23% of the vote. This means that 77% of the registered voters did not vote to elect our leaders, our politicians. We need voter turnout in November. We need mail-in balloting in November. We must vote to retire Mitch on November 3rd, 2020.
This partisan impeachment will end today.
Thank you so much, Doug Price. Doug Price always bringing the facts, bringing the research, informing us quite a bit about how Mitch's trail of dark money connections always leads to worse policy outcomes for the state of Kentucky. So I think this right now leads into a very appropriate call to action. So Lieutenant Bonespurs has been attacked for attacking the media for the past few days when word broke in an Atlantic piece that he was referring to those who died in action, those who were wounded in action, those who were taken prisoner in action, suckers and losers. I think it's a really appropriate time to remind everyone that it's been 73 days since the news broke that the White House has failed to respond to intelligence briefings about a Russian bounty on our troops. Mitch McConnell, our senator, has failed to clearly criticize either the program or the White House failure to respond. A new wrinkle to this story was the revelation from the new book, Donald Trump v. the United States, by New York Times reporter Michael Schmidt, that Mitch, dear Mitch, our fearless leader, fell asleep during a classified briefing on Russian intelligence with the U.S. elections. So it seems clear that we need to make sure that Sleepy Mitch has plenty of time to nap in November without being bothered by little things like our national election security. So which side are you on, Mitch? If you could take action today, go to his Facebook page, make a comment, go to his Twitter feed, make a comment, reply to whatever he's got up there right now, probably something about his CARES Act and how fantastic it is to provide resources to the state of Kentucky. We know that Mitch is that political cicada. He comes around every 6 years to deliver checks, to claim credit for action in D.C. Meanwhile, he's ignoring what's in the public interest. He's ignoring what's in our national interest and has not done nearly enough to put a check on Russian interference in elections or to call the White House into account for not doing enough to support our troops, even now, even as the Trump administration is being attacked because of that suckers and losers comment, just showing his clear contempt for troops, or his contempt for the people that serve our nation. As I think back to my grandfather, the time that he spent in the military, I know he wasn't a sucker. He wasn't a loser. He was doing what was in the best interest of our nation, which of course is something that Trump does not understand, and which Mitch McConnell seemingly does not understand as well. If it's about his power, sure, he's in for it. If it's about his wealth, then he'll be there for it. But if it's about you and I and the state of Kentucky, he doesn't seem to show up for it. except every 6 years. So let's call him on it. Let's go to his Facebook page right now, ask him which side he's on, ask him why he has not acted in response to that report about the bounty, the Russian bounty on U.S. troops, and the take on what the White House has been saying about our troops. So anyway, take action. Again, this isn't just a live stream for us to talk at you. It's a live stream for us to get action together, take action together, make a difference together. So I hope you'll do that right now. So now we're going to bring a new interview to you. This was a couple of folks we heard from a few weeks ago in our Masked and Mad as Hell protest. They came and they spoke in front of Mitch's office, and they were fantastic. Unfortunately, the video did not work to interview them, so we're going to bring them back. We've got Cathy Hobart Spicer and Ella McCutchen. Cathy is the Kentucky leader for Students Demand Action. Cathy's the leader for Moms Demand Action, and Ella is the Frankfurt High School leader for Students Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. And they got some great stuff to share with us, so enjoy. All right, so thank you so much for joining us on Moscow Mitch Monday. Thanks so much for coming out to our protest. You guys were fantastic at the live Masked Up and Mad as Hell rally that we held outside of Mitch McConnell's office before we got escorted off the property by the police. But I'm really excited to have a chance to just hear a little bit more about you guys and about kind of, your agenda and how you think it fits with what's going on in Kentucky. But as every interview starts, what does your protest sign say today? And we'll start with you, Cathy.
What is my protest sign? No, it's just the same every day. Ditch Mitch.
It's a classic. It never goes out of style. Hopefully it will in 70-ish days.
We're hoping.
Ella, how about you? What does your sign say?
I did not have a sign when I came. I had a speech instead, but the sentiment is still there.
If you're going to have a sign, what would it say, theoretically?
Geez, can you ever really go wrong with Ditch Mitch? I feel like if I thought about it, I'd come up with something more creative.
We can revisit it at the end of the interview if you choose. That's fine. Again, Ditch Mitch is perfect. I have no problems with that one. That's a great one.
Right, all right, and gun violence. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, Cathy, what is Moms Demand Action, and how did you get involved?
Well, Moms Demand Action is a grassroots, nonpartisan gun violence prevention movement. Started about, 7 or 8 years ago after the Sandy Hook shooting. There was a mom named Shannon Watts who was very concerned that we needed to do something about school shootings, and she was looking for a group to join. She couldn't find one she liked, so she started her own. And we are now all over the United States, over 6 million of us supporters, and we're working on gun violence prevention. I've been involved for the last about 2.5 years, sort of that winter when there was the shooting at Marshall and Parkland was when I got really actively involved. But I've learned over the years that since I've been involved that there's so much more than just school shootings that we have to deal with. So I'm just fired up to stop the death. So
great. And then Ella, telling me a little bit about yourself. So you're with Students Demand Action, is that right? And how did you get involved?
Yeah. I'm with Students Demand Action. I'm the chapter lead for Frankfurt High School's chapter of Students Demand Action. I started it the beginning of last year in August or September. I kind of just stumbled across it on the internet, and I was like, hey, this looks really awesome. I'd really like to be a part of this. And so I started it with another one of my peers, and we got to work, and we started doing presentations with our local group of people who wanted to learn more, and just educating ourselves about the issue. I think we really started going when we went to Advocacy Day last year. That was amazing. We got to talk to different representatives. I spoke at the Capitol, and really the more time that I spend with the volunteers with Students Demand Action and Moms Demand Action, the more I learn, and the more excited I get. And really, it's just something that I've always been passionate about, and then I kind of just found a way to put that passion into action when I found Students Demand Action, and it's just really been a positive thing in my life, and I've met a lot of really awesome people through it.
That's great. That's so great. So Cathy, how is gun violence a particular problem in the Commonwealth of Kentucky?
Well, yeah, it is a particular problem here, and we have 718 shootings a year, deaths by gun in Kentucky, and that doesn't include people that are injured. And that makes us about the 15th most deadly state in terms of gun violence. We also have a particular problem with gun suicide in Kentucky. 68% of the people that die by gun in Kentucky have committed suicide. And that's a particular problem among older white men in rural areas in particular. And it's a problem that's really, that we need to address. And then we also have, homicides primarily are in our cities, where we need to deal with our problems of violence in those cities. And yeah, so it is a problem here across the state of Kentucky. And it's particularly a problem because we have such easy access to guns. They're very unregulated in the state of Kentucky.
And then how would you say Mitch McConnell has engaged in the agenda of your organization, Cathy?
Well, he's actually, we consider the biggest impediment to advancing gun violence prevention in the United States today. We blame him in particular, because the one thing that we know could make a huge difference is if we would just have a background check on all gun sales. If everyone who went to buy a gun, and we don't have anything against people buying guns, but what we want to try to do is keep them out of the hands of dangerous people. And background checks actually help with that. But the legislation that's needed to be passed to get these background checks on all gun sales in the United States has been sitting on his desk for the last year and a half. And he, just like all the good legislation, all good bipartisan legislation that would actually help people in the United States, just sits on his desk. And he's a grim reaper, he says, because that's where bills go to die, but it's where people go to die too, and it's just unconscionable.
Right. Yeah. A few weeks ago, we had Congressman Yarmuth on the program, on the live stream, and he, when pressed to identify the bill that he was most supportive of getting off of Mitch's desk, getting out of the graveyard, he pointed to this background checks bill. And so but clearly if Mitch is doing it, it must be unpopular in Kentucky, right Cathy?
Actually not. Actually, this is something that's very surprising, because we're a very gun friendly state. Most people in Kentucky are supportive of people owning guns, and lots of people in Kentucky do own guns. But when surveyed about background checks on all gun sales, I think it was 78%, 78% of Kentuckians, including 71% of people that voted for Donald Trump in the last election, said that yes, we should have background checks on all gun sales, that would make us safer if we just knew who was buying these guns. And yet McConnell he's not beholden to his constituents, not even the constituents that vote for him. He's only beholden to his corporate donors, particularly the NRA and other people that give money to his campaign in order to get their non-legislation, through, so that gun sales can continue to grow. That's the whole point of Mitch McConnell, is being, in favor of businesses that want to sell guns, not in favor of people who want to be safe.
So that's one more time with that statistic. It was 78% of all Kentucky voters and 71% of the voters that supported Donald Trump in 2016 all background checks?
Yes, according to a recent survey that was conducted by Gabby Gifford's organization. Gabby Giffords, who was shot as she was campaigning several years ago, and has started her own foundation and organization that is really in favor of background checks. And we work together with these organizations, and they're the ones that did this research of people in Kentucky. Yes. So
Fantastic. Wow, that is just eye-opening. And it doesn't, necessarily line up with maybe your kind of expectation of what Kentucky voters would want, but I think it's very, very powerful, and it's something people should know, that Mitch is standing in the way. Not just, he's not doing it because his voters want him to. He's doing it because his donors want him to.
yeah, we actually had at a rally that we were at last year, we had some 3%ers who said, "What are you guys talking about here?" And we said, "Background checks for all gun sales." And they said, "Oh yeah, that makes sense." Those are the 3%.
The 3%ers, those are of course the people who bring arms to protest.
Right, they had their guns with them at the protest, and they wanted, they thought that what we were trying to do was grab their guns, and we were like, "No, we're not in favor of grabbing."
It's
your
so
guns.
weird. Where would they get the impression, Cathy, that people like you just want to grab their guns? Where would they get that idea?
Well, yeah, that's just propaganda that's put out by the gun lobby, and people that are, they want to make us afraid of each other. They want to make us think that we all need a gun all the time, everywhere, to stay safe, which obviously is not true. And but that idea is very much pressed by the gun lobby, and people, they believe it.
Well, and not just the gun lobby, right? I mean, the politicians that are in the gun lobby's pocket. So you won't see a gun lobby. Wayne LaPierre will not make an appearance this year at the Republican National Convention. He does not have to. His agenda is full display because every politician, even the most reasonable, quote, reasonable Republican that'll be speaking there, will say that the Democrats and Biden want to take your gun. But really, your agenda, just to be super clear, Cathy, it's to do background checks.
Right. Our agenda is to keep people safe in a culture in which guns are available to people. We want to keep people safe. We do not want to grab people's guns. We just want to keep people safe from gun violence.
So what you're saying is in the second term of Biden is when you grab the guns. Is that what happens?
No. No.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, who are you going to believe, Cathy? Are you going to believe Moms Demand Action? Or are you going to believe some, cynical Republican who's just looking to scare people into voting for him? Because if they actually heard the agenda from your mouth, people would go, "Oh yeah, I support that."
Right. Yes. And that is their, very much so want to keep us from being able to present our message and bring it to people. But it's getting out. It's getting out nationwide. Like, for example, in the state of Virginia, in their most recent election, they flipped both the houses from blue to red, or from red to blue, primarily on the strength of a gun violence prevention platform. And they've now passed lots of good legislation in Virginia. And surprisingly, people can still buy guns in Virginia. They can still own guns in Virginia.
Well, that's probably because that big rally where they all showed up with their guns. Yeah. Right? That's probably what kept you from taking them. I know you wanted to take their guns. I know, it's outrageous. It's just so outrageous and so offensive. And it's just, the degraded quality of our political discourse. Like, it's not discourse. There's no discourse. There's no actual conversation. It's one side is filling the airways with lies. The other side is like, I don't know, trying desperately to get the message out, trying to be fact-based, trying not to make solely emotional appeals. And it's, like we're bringing a water balloon to a thermonuclear war. I kind of feel like, we're not able to keep up. Hey, so Ella, really quickly, school has just started. What's going on with Students Demand Action? So tell me, do you have some plans? I mean, obviously you're just trying to sort out your schedule, I'm sure, this week. But what are you thinking about in terms of your engagement over the next few months?
Well, I've been talking a lot with our national leaders and leaders from other states, and I've got some really cool stuff lined up. Tomorrow, actually, I think. Yeah, tomorrow we are hosting a watch party, and we'll be watching Ava DuVernay's 13th. And we're just going to watch it all together and talk about it afterwards as part of, kind of our effort nationally, but also my effort to focus more on the racial disparities within the issue of gun violence and sort of how racism affects us in our daily lives, and also how that can lead to Black and brown communities being affected at higher rates, affected by gun violence, as opposed to white communities. Other than that, I'm going to be working to get our recruitment up, because we always want new people, even if they're not from Frankfurt High. We love having people involved. We love having people engaged. Really just what we want to do, I think, as students, besides helping pass legislator and phone banking, is we really just want to educate people and educate young voters and high schoolers so that when they get older, they can make informed decisions. I think one of our biggest goals is not necessarily to push people into what we believe, but show people the facts so that they can make their own decisions and they can be responsible voters once they're old enough to do that.
That makes a lot of sense. That's great, Ella. Well, good luck with those efforts. And just so people are clear, he said 13. That's what you're going to watch? That's the
13th by Ava, directed by Ava DuVernay.
Yes, so that is the documentary about the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, and kind of how racism is kind of, a common theme through a lot of U.S. history. Fantastic. So really appreciate you guys coming on. Cathy, any final thoughts, any final messages you'd like to leave our viewers with?
Well, besides that, get out and vote against Mitch McConnell. Do whatever you can to prevent him from becoming the majority leader again, because as long as he's in power, nothing good is going to happen. So we have to ditch Mitch.
Yep. The single worst politician, the single biggest impediment to progress on gun safety
is Mitch McConnell.
Is Mitch McConnell.
Yes, definitely. We also have other what we call gun sense candidates that are running, and there's a website that you can go to. It's called gunsensevoter.org. And if you want to find out about who in your area is running on a gun sense platform, you can discover their names there. So go to gunsensevoter.org. Biden and Harris are both gun sense candidates of distinction, so we are supporting them as well. So
Fantastic. So yeah, we've got about 70 days to make it happen, people. So would you say, Cathy, people should just vote? They should just take their time and wait for those 70 days, or should people get engaged in other ways as well?
Well, there's lots of ways that you can get engaged. And, you can, if you find a gun sense voter in your area, you can volunteer for their campaign. You can register people to vote, register young people to vote, register anybody that needs to register to vote. You can educate people. I do postcards. We do lit drops. There's lots and lots of ways that people can get involved. And if you want to know particularly about what Moms is doing, we have a Facebook page, Moms Demand Action, Kentucky member, we have a Kentucky page. So anyway, if you just look at Moms Demand Action on Facebook, you'll be able to find us.
Awesome. And I hope I'm not telling tales out of school, but Cathy is also helping out with our 5K for KY campaign. So we're definitely looking, if you want to do voter registration, you want to do it safely, kind of contact free through the U.S. Postal Service, please go to our website. Check out 5K for KY. And it's bit.ly. It's a bit.ly link, but we'll put it in the comments on the screen as well, so you can take action. But yeah, clearly mission number one is get rid of Mitch, or leave it all on the field trying to do so. Let's at a minimum, we want to see a wave that demotes him, but ideally he's just gone and retired completely. So thank you too for coming on. Thank you for your passion for this issue, which 78% of Kentucky voters agree with you. I know, I'm sure it sometimes feels thankless, but thank you, and let's keep doing it.
Okay, well, thank you, Aaron. Thanks for giving us the opportunity.
All right, thank you, Cathy. Thank you, Ella. Thank you for your eloquence about gun control and how Mitch has been in the way of very common sense gun control measures, gun safety measures that are wildly popular. So speaking of, we actually now are going to bring in just a short clip of one of my favorite interviews, which is the one that Chairman Yarmuth granted us. So John Yarmuth, who's a congressman from the Louisville area, has been a fantastic leader on progressive issues for quite some time, and is going to share with us a little bit about what it's like working with Mitch, what Mitch's political outlook is, and then what's at stake. What is Mitch stopping from happening in Washington D.C. So bringing in Congressman Yarmuth right now.
How does the atmosphere differ from being in the majority versus being in the minority?
Oh, wow. Well, I spent my first 2 terms in the majority, both of which, well, first one with George Bush as president, then with Barack Obama as president. So my second term, we actually had the House, the Senate, and the presidency. And that's the term in which we passed the Affordable Care Act. And Dodd-Frank. So we were actually able to accomplish some really important things. We lost the majority in 2010. So from then until 2018, we were in the minority. And being in the minority in the House of Representatives, it absolutely sucks. It really does. I mean, you are powerless. It's frustrating. All you can do at that point is to scream and protest and try to, with the limited opportunities the minority has in the House, force Republicans to take some uncomfortable votes, but that generally doesn't make any difference. My Republican friends, most of whom now who are in the minority in the House, have never been in the minority, and they are seeing or experiencing that same level of frustration. The difference between being in the minority as a Democrat and being in the minority as a Republican in the House is that Republicans aren't as frustrated because they never have any legislative agenda to begin with. So with them, it's like, okay, well, I'm here, I'm getting my check, and I get to take some Codels, which are basically junkets where they get to travel internationally. And so their life is fine. For Democrats in the minority, it was very frustrating because we have actually policy agendas that we would like to accomplish, or at least move in the right direction, and we're never able to do that. So in the Senate, it's different because of the 60-vote rule in the Senate. If you're in the minority, you still have assuming you don't, you have more than 40 votes, you have the opportunity to be very effective legislatively. And of course, that's where Mitch was actually his most powerful and his most subversive, when he was a minority leader and could basically make sure that nothing that the Obama administration wanted to do could ever get done. And so one of the interesting potential issues moving forward is if we're able to take back the Senate and the White House, which right now I would say we have a good chance of doing, there's going to be incredible pressure on Chuck Schumer, assuming he becomes majority leader, to end the filibuster, to end the 60-vote rule. And I think there's considerable justification for doing that. And you can see how scared Mitch is of that, because he was warning Democrats against that last week, saying, oh, you take the majority back, you shouldn't do that. You better be careful. Well, he knows why that's important, because that would emasculate him as minority leader. So it'll be a very interesting time to be in the minority in the Senate if we take back the majority.
Yeah,
We take back the majority. I'm all about the win factor. I'm all about let's do it. Let's put on our boots and let's get out there and make it happen.
That's right. And it's not that being in the majority in this environment right now is not frustrating, because we have passed, I think the number is close to 400 bills so far in this Congress, many of which were bipartisan, and they're sitting on Mitch's desk. And Mitch just won't bring them up to a vote, regardless of the fact that they have incredibly broad support in the public. He just doesn't want to do it. And he has done more, I think, to to add to the dysfunctionality of the Senate and the Congress than anybody in modern history. Single-handedly, I think he's done that.
Yeah. I mean, anyone who gleefully calls himself the Grim Reaper of the Senate, right?
That's right.
He's got an agenda. And it is to stop you, sir, from doing anything you want to do. And, of the 400-ish bills, I think a couple hundred-ish that actually were bipartisan, right? Had some measure of bipartisan support. What's your favorite bill that's sitting on Mitch's desk right now, dying a slow, painful death?
Well, it's universal background checks on gun purchases. This is an issue that has 90% support in the country. 75% of NRA members support that, and we passed it, and Mitch is just sitting on it. And quite frankly, I don't think Mitch cares about the issue one way or another, and he probably understands that politically he's on the wrong side of it, but he doesn't want to put his members in the position of casting difficult votes.
All right, John Yarmuth. Thank you, Congressman John Yarmuth, for joining the Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee. And thank you for the work that you do in Washington, D.C. I'm very hopeful that come November we'll be able to add a couple more, thoughtful members to the Kentucky delegation. So you're not out there all by yourself, trying to work with folks like Massey and, of course, our own Senator Moscow, Mitch McConnell. So now we're going to bring in that interview with Bill Longrian with the Kentucky AFL-CIO. I did want to note that during that interview, Bill proceeds to match a challenge match that we have. At that time, it was $350. I don't know if, because I rerun this, he'll give us another $350. Probably not. So if you wanted to make a donation, go ahead to our Secure Act Blue website right now. And again, we do have a challenge grant out there, a challenge donation, $500 from an anonymous donor. You'll match up to $500. We're at, I think, $200 right now. So we got about $300 that we'd like to fundraise. So please do make a donation. But Labor Day, we're going to hear from Kentucky's stalwart labor leader, Bill Longrian. Next, we've got our interview for the night. Bill Longrian is joining us. He is the longtime leader of the Kentucky AFL-CIO and American Federation of Labor, Congress of Industrial Organizations. Is that right? Is that what the AFL-CIO actually means, Bill?
It does actually mean that, and I'm actually surprised that you know it. So appreciate that.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks so much for joining us. We know that labor is an important player in the kind of, political landscape here in Kentucky. It has been for an awfully long time. And we're glad you're going to share, I think, very well timed, because I know you guys have been very active on the HEROES Act fight. But really quick, before we get into the meat of the interview, what does your sign say today, Bill?
Mine says, hey, multi-millionaire Moscow Mitch, pass a HEROES Act, not your Zeros Act.
Nice. A little internal rhyme. It's always good for a protest sign. A little rhyming. Never hurt anyone. All right. So fewer and fewer workers, I think, have been represented by a union in the workforce today, right? I mean, it's just an unfortunate reality. Is fewer people have had that kind of firsthand experience. What would you like everyone to know about the value of unions such as the AFL-CIO?
Oh, a number of things. And let me just say this as well. The statistical analysis that says the unions are losing all these members and stuff is really, not correct. And I'll tell you why. Because it's based on the total number of people in the workforce. So as the workforce increases large amounts over every year, in order for us to keep a percentage of the workforce organized, we would have to organize millions of workers. And obviously that's a pretty difficult task under the environment that we've been in for the last 40 years, where labor and workers have been under continual attack by big business interests and their puppets like Mitch McConnell. That's kind of a statistic that really misleads, because, we've had 13 or 14 million people in the workforce that are organized and union members for many, many years. And, it varies by different trades, occupations, professions, and whether you're in a public or your private sector. So, that thing is something that I think the the corporate media and their political puppets continue to espouse that, oh, the labor movement's in this great decline. Well, just today, I believe 45,000 people joined a union in California for healthcare workers and such. So, the notion that people are turning away is really incorrect, and especially under the conditions we're in now, which are very much attuned to workers being screwed over during this pandemic, and having workers more and more turning to unions as their only line of defense against corporations that are putting them at risk for death on the job. So that's one of the things that is so important about unions. You have a voice on the job and a way to protect your health and safety. Whereas if you're an unorganized worker and what we call an at-will worker, which about 90% of the public is that are not in unions, you have no right to your job and can be fired for no reason or any reason at all on any given day without a union contract. So the basic fundamental right and the basic fundamental difference about being in a union is that you have a contract that protects you, protects your rights on the job, or protects your rights to a job, where you have a grievance procedure. And, you look around right now, and I'm looking at you folks that are all relatively young in the media and doing things like this. And workers in the media and journalists are organizing left and right at Vox, Slate, all over the place, recognizing that they have no alternative in order to protect their interests on the job as well as improve their living standards. So, I mean, that's generally speaking what we're all about. I mean, you can go on and on about, what unions do in the community to raise wages and benefits and pensions and health care. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And of course, the general population in public and the general media have, totally discounted, and schools have engaged in revisionist history and left the labor movement out. And the only way you find out about it is through maybe programs like this, or whether your family member was in a union or somebody Other than that, we're left out, and done purposely, because unlike this media right now, all the other media is owned by huge corporations that hate unions. So anyway, that's a little bit of a thumbnail sketch and a little background, but I'll also mention as well that the purpose and value of the labor movement can't be more evident right now on efforts like the HEROES Act. The labor movement has been leading the charge for the HEROES Act. The HEROES Act incorporates many of the elements of what we call the 5 essential elements for having a good economy under the pandemic, and that was put into the HEROES Act, including protections for health and safety on the job, healthcare extensions under COBRA, and on and on. Money for state and local governments that are being starved of revenue. Money for the infrastructure, for the U.S. Postal Service. I mean, it is one of the most far-reaching and important and necessary efforts and pieces of legislation that we have ever seen. And what we got is this, mealy-mouthed effort by multimillionaire Moscow Mitch McConnell and his colleagues to do nothing and sit there for weeks and months on end while people are going to lose their houses. It is absolutely unconscionable. And how a working person in the Commonwealth of Kentucky could vote for Mitch McConnell is just totally mind-boggling to me, that this guy has become a multi-millionaire while working for the government for forever. He's been in Senate since 1984. Well, their salary, what's their salary? Get the through the research. It's it must be like 180,000 or something like that. I mean, but how he's accumulated 40 and 50 million dollars. You think he gives a darn about whether or not you put food on the table or whether you got a job? You got to be kidding. So anyway, we have the HEROES Act before us, and the proposal that they just put out, the $200 to increase on the federal unemployment benefit, is a joke. It's an absolute shame, and there's no way that the Democrats should ever agree to that. The only thing that's been keeping our economy from going into a full-blown depression has been that $600 that people are spending every week to put food on the table. And we got Mnuchin sitting up there telling us that oh, wow, this is going to encourage people to stay home and not work and all this other stuff. Well, it's okay for him and his CEO buddies to stay home and not work, you know, but when it comes to working people, well, gosh, we can't give them any benefits whatsoever, you know. And when you look at the numbers, they keep throwing out this, oh, these folks are, you know, making more than they would if they were working nonsense, without making any statistical analysis of who that may even apply to. Most people on unemployment are making a lot less than they were, even with the $600. So this is a problem that, you know, a perception that they put out here to try to undermine working people's right to have a good standard of living. And the irony of it to me is it's unbelievable, because, you know, our economy is based on consumer spending almost, you know, exclusively. And that consumer spending is spent at the companies that have gotten all these big tax breaks, you know. And if the people don't have the money to spend, and those companies are going to get hurt. So why would they be against having people with money in their pockets to try and keep food on the table and pay for their necessities and not get evicted from their houses or their apartments and made homeless? I don't even recognize, in many respects, the country that we're living in, my friends, from what has been going on, not just here recently, but over the last several decades, where the cards have been reshuffled to pay it as if, you know, workers are somehow the enemies of the country, but we're the ones that make it happen and make it work. And without unions, you don't even have democracy. So what we got here is a real, you know, failure to communicate, I would say, to coin a phrase. And, you know, we need to pass this HEROES Act. You know, people are being put in harm's way without any protections whatsoever on their jobs and work sites, and they're dying from it. But we got no effort on behalf of McConnell and his colleagues to address that. They're too busy putting unqualified right-wing judges on these federal benches for life, instead of taking care of the livelihoods of the people that make this country work, the citizens of the United States and Kentucky.
So it probably goes without saying that all of us here at the Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee are pretty pro-union, you know, and we're pretty much on your side. Now, what should Kentuckians know about Mitch and his relationship to unions?
Well, I'd say he probably doesn't have one very much, you know. The only time he has to do anything for working people, whether they be union members or not, is when he's absolutely forced to, and it's politically expedient for him to do it. And he always does it with the same MO. Wait till the last minute, negotiate over the thing and break it down to its, you know, least common denominator, and then pass something and then claim that, you know, he saved them. He's, you know, I'm a great savior of the workers. I haven't seen the ads yet, but I've gotten phone calls of people mentioning that his ads are, you know, saying that he's been a great friend of working people. And, you know, it really, you know, just strains the imagination to figure out how that's the case, when everything he's always done has been to benefit large corporations and his rich buddies. You know, let's go back to the tax breaks that they came out. Remember the big corporate tax, the whole tax break that blew up the deficit again to the trillions of dollars? That tax break that they were going to hire all these people, and then they didn't hire them, and they bought back their stock, and they gave CEOs increases in millions of dollars worth of stock options. I mean, it's so ludicrous, and it's so obvious that he's been doing this for so long and getting away with it, and coming into Kentucky when it's convenient for him and talking, you know, like he's some big buddy of all these, you know, working class people. You know, he's been a bigger, you know, brainwasher and an effective, you know, sleight of hand magician on these issues as anybody. And, you know, it's really time to stop. I really like what you guys are doing with your Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee. Me and the labor movement here have been trying to retire him for decades now, okay? And we are going to continue to do it till we get rid of him, and this is the time that's coming. If he fails to produce on this HEROES Act and bring back the $600, at least until January, you know, what are we talking about here? You know, a couple months worth of benefits so that people can feed their children.
So you kind of just answered this question, but has Mitch ever shown any kindness to unions in his 35 years as a senator?
I didn't quite hear what you said, Annabelle. I'm sorry. What was that?
So You kind of just answered this, but has Mitch ever shown any kindness to unions during his 35 years?
Well, not particularly. I mean, I'm sure at some points in time he has done favors and tried to pass stuff that may have helped unions and as well as other workers. But we have a rating system for the afl-cio for those that vote on these, the voting record, shall we say, for the afl-cio. I really haven't looked his up lately, okay? But it's probably less than 10% or 5%, okay? So that'll give you an indication about how many times he votes with working people, not just unions, we'll say on issues like trade, issues like safety and health, issues like healthcare. It's a minuscule amount of time, okay? So the amount of times that he has voted in favor of people that work for a living that would benefit them. And then on the other side of the ledger, you can look at the Chamber of Commerce's voting record for Mitch McConnell. I'm quite sure it's really high up there, And who's ever doing your research, they can look it up right now if they wanted to, And let me just mention something here. I just pulled this up today, speaking of doing a little research, right? And we talk about unemployment insurance benefits, and most people really don't understand a whole lot about them until, they get stuck and lose a job and get laid off and need to collect, But that, I went on the internet, of course, and looked at the the maximum weekly benefits that people collect in these states and across the country in all the states. The maximum weekly benefit for workers that are laid off and collecting unemployment insurance in the state of Tennessee is $275. It's right here, $275. 378 over in Virginia. So if you don't have the 600 on that and you're living in Tennessee and you have to put food on the table and support your family and your children and pay your car payment, your mortgage, and you got $275 a week, that is a sin, okay? And that is, it varies from state to state. And of course, why it varies from state to state, because it depends on who's controlling the political system in those states. If they're Republican controlled and, got friends with Mitch McConnell and such, you got these minuscule benefits or maximums that are unlivable, well, as we say, a livable wage. Well, sure, that isn't one. So if I'm in Tennessee, for instance, and I use that as an example, in Kentucky, we've got a much higher rate of unemployment. In fact, we used to have much higher rates of everything for working people until certain things changed in this state. Our maximum weekly benefit is $552. Now, that's 66 2/3 of the average weekly wage. Now, most people aren't getting that level of benefit, even, if they're collecting unemployment. They're not getting the maximum benefit. Only the highest wage earners are getting that benefit. But everybody's taking a pay cut when they collect unemployment. They want to act like it's some sort of gimme, and that people are, going to say, oh, I'm not going to go to work. I need that $275 a week. I'd rather make that. It's unbelievable. It's unconscionable. And without the $600, I mean, this was I would say a godsend. Under the CARES Act. And not only, it kept our economy, as I said, from going into an actual depression, it put money in people's pockets. And let me see, Dustin over at Center for Economic Policy, I think $1.7 billion came into the Commonwealth from that benefit. And it generated $3 billion worth of economic activity. You would think these folks in Washington, like Mitch McConnell, would say that was a good thing. That people could go buy stuff in the stores and in the businesses that give him all his campaign contributions. You would think he'd want to do that, but they want to, flip the script and make people look like they're trying to, get something for nothing. Krugman just came out with his article here today. There's 30 million Americans on unemployment insurance, and there's 5 million jobs. So, of course, there's job mismatches and different qualifications. So not everybody can just automatically go into one of those 5 million jobs if they're at where they're at and what kind of occupations they're in. But there are 30 million plus people unemployed in that small amount of jobs. And
It's astounding to me, Bill. Thank you so much. That's some really helpful information, and it's astounding to me because obviously the only thing that all these political creatures are thinking about is re-election, right? So you've got Donald Trump, who's his main agenda has been to ignore the pandemic, pretend it's not there, so that he can try to get the economy moving again. You just nailed it. The only reason this economy is still moving is because there are these kind of turbocharged unemployment benefits to keep people whole when they can't work. We had Dr. Birx came to Kentucky this weekend to tell us, yeah, you need to shut down the bars. Well, geez, what happens when you shut down the bars? These folks who've been kind of trying to come back to work aren't going to be able to come back to work. So what happens to them? Well, conveniently enough, this is when they have either the benefit has run out and they're not going to get their act together to renew it, or they're going to do this piecemeal $200 a week thing, which is not going to let you even pay your rent. I don't know where these people live. Well, Birx, I'm sure, is her house, I'm sure, is paid for, and Mitch and all his contributors, they're all paid for. They don't need to worry about it. But it is going to hurt people. And who are they going to blame? Well, they better blame the folks in charge in Washington, D.C. right now, because this is coming out of Trump. This is coming out of McCutchen. This is coming out of Mitch McConnell. Right. So if he wants to get reelected in 99 days, we got 99 days to go, folks. Remember who's in charge when things are going rough here in Kentucky because of the horrible leadership we've seen at the federal level. So that's my soapbox. But Bill, any other actions you want to point to in terms of what Kentucky AFL-CIO is doing to help defeat Mitch in November? Because I know you guys have never endorsed him, as far as I know. I heard this weekend, I think you endorsed Amy, made it official. And what else are you doing to help get rid of Mitch?
As much as possible. You already put up the 866 number, which if you could share again, we're just having people call, and it's a patch through number. So there's a little intro there that informs people of specifically what is going on with the HEROES Act and what they should be asking for. And we have some stuff planned for Thursday at several offices around the Commonwealth that we think we should get some unemployed people to go visit Mitch's offices and talk to their staff and express their needs and desires and their concerns, all of the angst that they have built up from, not knowing what's going to go on and the difficulty they have, in this economy and under this pandemic. We're going to try to get people to listen. So we'll be putting some material out on that very shortly. That's another thing that we're going to try and do. Again, just continuing to try and communicate with people. We've had several of these town hall type Facebook Live events, and we've been trying to get the word out. Last week we did one with the Kentucky Equal Justice Center and Kentucky Economic Policy Institute and several other groups, and we had some unemployed women that were on that program, and they told what it is they're facing. And so we're going to try and continue getting this message out. And I think it's important for people to realize in Kentucky, if Mitch McConnell bails out on us right now when the help is most needed, what do we need him for?
Absolutely. This is, what's the point of having the most powerful senator in Washington, D.C. if he never delivers for your Commonwealth? Why is it we still have, Doug can't be live with us because the internet's so bad out in Cynthiana? Why is it there are, bridges falling apart in Kentucky that people are scared to drive over, yet he's married to the Secretary of Transportation and he's got some secret line to bring us all the goods? Well, he's not doing a very good job, right? So, put the politics aside. But if you think that, the number one job of a senator in D.C. is to bring resources back to the Commonwealth, he's failing on that very simple, estimate. And let alone the actual policies he's pushing, which, are hurting us again and again and again. And I think this HEROES Act work that you guys are doing is so important, Bill. And let us know about Thursday. We'd love to spread the word. I think it's really important people show up at his often vacant offices because, there's so few kind of actual good faith efforts to connect to constituents and provide services for constituents. Because, the millionaires and the billionaires, the big corporate fat cats, they don't need to stop by the office. They've got his, his cell phone, I'm sure. But, the providing the services thing, he's always been horrible about. And as we mentioned earlier, he never picks up his phone. His staff never pick up the phone. It's almost like they don't want to hear from us.
I would imagine that's a problem, because he's supposed to be working for us. And that's where we have a real disconnect, and that's why people need to just get over it and get rid of them. I mean, I don't see what the whole, interest is, or his allure to them. As you mentioned, the leader of the Senate. Well, how is he using that leadership, to put these right-wing, radical, unqualified judges on a federal bench? That's all he's been doing.
Yeah.
And we've got this huge pandemic going on. Oh, now all of a sudden he's going to wear a face mask, and that's all good too. And he's been buddying up, and everything that Trump wants to do. And of course, who's the one that blocked the impeachment of this president that we have, that is turning our country into a war zone, with all his silly rhetoric and racist comments. And today it just almost made me gag when he said that he would not go and pay respects to Congressman John Lewis as he laid in state in the Capitol. That just shows you where he's at, and Mitch McConnell's right along with him.
Yeah, so offensive. The idea that the conscience of the Congress is not going to be recognized by that lazy, good for nothing, president. It is truly, it's an embarrassment that he wouldn't recognize. I mean, even Mitch knew enough to say nice things about, Congressman Lewis. He wouldn't do the actual thing, which is advance the Voter Protection Act, right? Well, that's the number one thing he should do if he wants to honor John Lewis's sacrifices and his life's work, is to make sure that it's safe for people to vote. And it's of course he won't ever do that. But it's a troubling time. We've got our work cut out for us. 99 days, Bill. I know that you are going to be there in the trenches for all 99 of them, working really hard to make sure that that labor's perspective is shared in this election. And I've been really impressed with the work that I've seen the AFL-CIO do in the past few sessions that I've been a part of, or the campaign races that I've been a part of. And we're glad to see that union effort. So thank you so much for all of that, Bill. We appreciate it very much.
It takes a team of people, and it also takes our members and their families, who are more likely to understand these issues, I guess, than the average voter. And they turn out and they know pretty much what's going on, and we can at least make the effort to inform them further and to make sure that they understand who is going to support them when they get to the Congress or to the State House, and and that's really what it's all about. And, I just want to applaud your effort to try and, continue helping getting this message across to people, average people in Kentucky that need to get this message about Mitch McConnell, how much money he's going to spend on TV. One of the things we're really missing here is owning a TV station or something, because there are millions and millions of dollars that are going to pour in, with him putting misleading ads on, which, is, like I mentioned before, his MO and in the legislative process, and his MO in the political process is to spend so much money on another person that they and frame them in a negative light in the context and make him look like he's something special, and he's got unlimited money. People say, oh well, Amy's raised X dollars, which is equivalent to what Mitch had raised in his campaign account. But you guys that are doing this research, he's got the Bluegrass Committee, the committee to keep the Senate in Mitch McConnell's control, and all these different piles of money that he has people put in by the millions of dollars. We have people that campaign and we get them $100 or $50 or $10, and he gets is Sheldon Adelson or somebody like that to write him a check. Well, you're $5 million, and that's the way this whole, and that's why he helped them pass Citizens United, so he can control this political process. That should be something that is also on the minds of every American. We've got a big problem. Those with the money are the ones who are controlling the system, and that's a fundamental flaw, because the average person's voice is obviously drowned out. And it all gets back to this, huge money in politics. I once heard Jimmy Carter say, as Jimmy Carter, went around the world to protect democratic elections and the processes and election processes to make sure that they were done properly. And somebody asked him, would you ever do that here in this country? And he said, absolutely not. He says, with the money that's in our political system, there's no way to really have a fair election, and it really was a commentary on that was a paraphrase, of course. Can't recall exactly the quote, but I can tell you that, he did say he wouldn't do it in the United States of America because we don't have equal access to the media, and he says one of the preconditions for a democratically run election in another country that he monitors is that all the candidates have a fair and equal access to the media, which is obviously what's bought and paid for by the billions of dollars in this country. And of course, thanks to Citizens United, those monies continue to skyrocket. And when you've got millionaires writing millions of dollars worth of checks, it becomes, hard to compete and really just a race to the bottom with the messaging and what the approaches really are to the political system. So, again, we've got some real fundamental problems, not just the pandemic, but how these elections function. I'm trying to be optimistic all the time about our elections. And the last one, the primary, when we had our first experience with mail-in absentee voting here in Kentucky, left me with a positive attitude, but on that score, because it increased the turnout, made voting a lot more efficient and easier for the average person. But it also creates a whole lot of worry going into November, hearing some of the things that I've been hearing about, Trump and those guys trying to stop and quell the mail-in voting system, even to go to the extreme of putting in a postmaster general that's trying to slow up the mail. So anyway, that's Mitch's great buddy. And, we're not going to let him forget that the House impeached this president for what he did, and Mitch McConnell got him off the hook.
Yep. It was not a fair trial. We didn't have any witnesses. It was outrageous. It was a kangaroo court in the worst case scenario. Bill, thank you so much for sharing your time, your energy, your perspective with us. That historical look at Mitch's failed record in terms of workers, and we're excited to be working with you to get rid of him. All right, so that was it. That's our Labor Day almost live stream. So thank you so much for tuning in. Really exciting to have this chance to share with you what we're planning for next Saturday, though. So next Saturday, we're going to do a See You Later, Senator Saturday, a visibility event at Harrodsburg Road and Corporate Drive. So right there, that intersection off of New Circle, that is where Mitch's office is. His Lexington office is in that big Lexington Bank building there. So big corporate, kind of anonymous corporate area. Of course, that's where Mitch is. But we're going to be on Harrodsburg Road starting at 3 o'clock on Saturday. We've got a couple new banners that we're unveiling. Very exciting. Bring your own Ditch Mitch themed banners and signs. Big visibility event, of course. Saturday at 3 o'clock is going to be a lot of traffic on Harrodsburg Road. We're going to be able to tell folks, why Mitch is failing our Commonwealth and what we need to do about it. So we'll do that from 3 to 4, and then from 4 we'll head over to Mitch's office. We'll see if he's there. If he's there, we can tell him to his face why we don't like him and why we want to see him defeated by November 3rd. But we will also, in case he's not there, we will have the Indivisible Organizer, Kentucky, Tennessee Indivisible Organizer, will have a cardboard cutout of Mitch. So we're going to have a cardboard cutout of Mitch. We can get some selfies and do some video and tell that cardboard cutout what we feel about him and his efforts to push policies that hurt our Commonwealth in favor of his corporate backers. So that's, again, next Saturday. We're going to do that's from 3 o'clock to 4:30 or so over on Harrodsburg Road and Corporate Drive. That will be feeding into our next live stream, which will be Moscow Mitch Monday with Mike Broihier. So Mike Broihier is going to be back. We'll be back with our full slate of co-hosts. You won't have just me. So thankfully, we'll hear from Nate and Kimberly. We'll have another Following Mitch's Money from Doug. We might have a I think we're due for an essay from Kit. So that would be fantastic. So it should be a great episode. But Mike Broihier, who of course came in third in the primary after Amy and Charles, but great guy running on a great campaign and looking to expand the awareness and support for universal basic income. So we'll talk a little bit about that, talk about what kind of policies he thinks the next Senate needs to be taking up, and should be a lot of fun. He's a really smart, thoughtful guy, and it should be a good conversation. Really quickly though, while you're here, while you're watching the page, why don't you just head over to the official page and invite some friends. We are very, very close to 2,000 likes. I want to get to 2,000 likes soon so we can have a as large of megaphone as possible and share as many, with as many folks as possible, the information that we are putting out there. So if you got anyone that you think is, done with Mitch, tired of Mitch, after 36 years, think we've had enough of Mitch and his corporate agenda that, has left Kentucky with falling apart bridges and, internet that doesn't work in our rural communities, why in the world do you have a powerful senator who's not delivering for your state? So go invite them to like the page. Also did want to say thanks to Ken and Couchfire Media for making this live stream look so good. The post-production work that he's doing, the images, the graphics he's bringing in, just the production of this live stream. It's a lot. He puts in a lot of time and energy, and we appreciate it very much. And go ahead and make a donation. We got that match right now. Take advantage of it. Kick in some amount, whatever you can pitch in to ditch Mitch. It all helps out. $11 buys a book of stamps. $55 buys a coil of stamps. And of course, we ran through our postage budget with all the voter registration work we were doing via the mail, which of course is cool because it supports us, and it also supported the U.S. Postal Service, which we know is being threatened by Mitch. So it all comes together in a virtuous cycle. Anyway, thanks so much for joining us. Have a great week. We'll see you on Saturday out at Corporate Drive in Harrodsburg Road at 3 o'clock if you can join us. Or if not, we'll see you next week on our live stream, Moscow Mitch Monday.